The suspect was arrested on charges of child neglect and later sentenced to 2 years of probation. Was that sentence fair, or do you think it fell short of justice? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe.
A routine day at a Florida apartment complex was shattered by a chilling discovery. 2 toddlers were found wandering aimlessly and unsupervised through a concrete parking garage, a space filled with moving vehicles and unseen dangers. Their presence alone immediately triggered an emergency response, launching a police investigation into a case of potential child neglect that would soon unravel a web of conflicting stories and questionable decisions. The arrival of law enforcement marked the beginning of a methodical inquiry to understand how such young children ended up in a perilous situation, completely separated from any adult supervision. The initial facts were sparse but alarming, pointing to a severe lapse in judgment on the part of their guardians. The officer's primary objective was to ensure the children's safety and then to locate the responsible adults to piece together the events that led to this dangerous moment. As the officers began their investigation on the property, they quickly learned that the 2 toddlers had not been entirely without supervision. The preliminary information suggested they had been left in the care of another child, an 11-year-old, while their mother was supposedly away at work. This detail added a new layer of complexity to the situation, raising questions about the appropriateness of leaving such a young individual in charge of 2 infants. The responsibility placed upon the older child was immense and, as events proved, ultimately insufficient to prevent the toddlers from wandering into harm's way. The police proceeded with caution, aware that the situation involved a family in distress and required a delicate but firm approach. Their focus shifted to locating the mother to get her account of the day's event, hoping to clarify the circumstances that led to her children being found in such a vulnerable state. The officers eventually made contact with a woman connected to the children. From the outset, her demeanor was tense and guarded. She engaged with the authorities while maintaining a degree of emotional distance, her posture and expressions betraying a deep sense of anxiety. The initial line of questioning was straightforward, aimed at establishing a clear timeline and confirming the care arrangements for the children. However, the woman's responses were not entirely forthcoming. Her narrative seemed fragmented, and she appeared to struggle with providing a consistent account. The officers, trained to detect inconsistencies, noted her evasiveness. Her body language suggested a person under immense pressure, possibly aware that her version of events was fragile. This initial interaction set a tone of suspicion, signaling to the investigators that there was more to the story than what was being presented on the surface. Her defensiveness only served to heighten their resolve to uncover the full truth.
He keeping 1,000 on me.
I am.
Are you?
Yeah.
So you told me you didn't leave the kids up there alone?
Yeah, I did.
So you did?
Yeah.
Okay. Why would you leave a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old alone?
The investigation intensified as police continued to probe the woman's story. They pressed for details about her decision to leave the toddlers with an 11-year-old. Her explanation that she had to go to work was the cornerstone of her defense, a justification she repeated in an attempt to portray her actions as those of a responsible parent providing for her family. Yet, the officers remained skeptical. The core of their concern was not just the age of the babysitter, but the fundamental failure to ensure the toddler's safety. The conversation grew more strained as the police pointed out the inherent risks of her arrangement. The woman became visibly frustrated, gesturing as if to underscore her points, but her words failed to alleviate the officers' concerns. Each question seemed to push her further into a corner, and her initial confidence began to erode, replaced by a more palpable sense of desperation as she realized the gravity of her situation. The dynamic of the investigation shifted dramatically with the arrival of a man carrying one of the young children. His appearance introduced a second key figure into the narrative, one whose testimony would prove crucial. The man, identified as the children's father and the woman's boyfriend, entered the scene with a serious expression, his presence immediately altering the atmosphere. The woman's anxiety appeared to spike, and a tense silence fell between them. The police now had two guardians to question, providing an opportunity to corroborate the woman's story or expose its flaws. The man's account of the day was solicited immediately. He began to speak, his tone earnest, offering a version of events that diverged significantly from what the woman had claimed. It was clear that his perspective would either support her or completely dismantle her defense, and the officers listened intently as he started to recount his movements.
Sir,
How you doing, boss?
what's going on? So, can you talk to me real quick?
Yes, sir. Hey, man.
What's going on?
They were sleeping. I ran to the store real quick.
The man's testimony provided a critical turning point. He explained that he had been at the apartment with the woman and the children earlier in the day. According to him, he needed to leave for a short period to run essential errands, specifically to buy diapers for the babies and to get parts to fix their car. He stated that he left the children in the care of the woman, his girlfriend, under the explicit understanding that she, an adult, would be supervising them. He claimed he was completely unaware of any plan for her to leave for work or to delegate the responsibility to the 11-year-old. This account directly contradicted the woman's story, where she had painted a picture of a working mother who made a difficult choice. He described a situation where she was the designated guardian who subsequently abandoned her post. His story presented a clear and logical reason for his absence, placing the burden of responsibility squarely back onto her.
That's what you're telling me.
And I was coming right back.
Okay, where were you going?
I was going to the store and I was trying to get a part for the car.
Okay.
And they need diapers and wipes, so I was also trying to get everything at once.
Has this ever happened?
Faced with two conflicting narratives, the police officer began to deconstruct the woman's claims. The man's statement provided the missing context that made the woman's earlier story fall apart. The officer confronted her with this new information, pointing out the stark inconsistency. She had initially told them she was at work, a statement now directly challenged by the man's account that he had left the children with her at home. Her defense crumbled under the weight of this contradiction. The officer's questioning became more direct and pointed. The pretense of a misunderstanding was gone, replaced by the reality of a formal investigation into neglect. The officer patiently laid out the facts as they now understood them. The man left, entrusting the children to her, and she then left, leaving them with an adolescent. The woman had no credible response to this revised timeline. Her earlier statements were now exposed as attempts to mislead the investigation and evade responsibility for her actions. The officer then shifted focus to the immense danger the children had faced. He sternly explained that they weren't just found unsupervised within the apartment, they were discovered in the parking garage, a place of constant movement and potential tragedy. He articulated the worst-case scenario, that the children could have been struck by a car, a devastating outcome that was avoided only by sheer luck. This stark reminder of the potential consequences of her negligence seemed to land with heavy impact. The theoretical risk had become a terrifyingly real event. The officer's words were not just an accusation but a lesson in responsibility, highlighting the absolute failure to prioritize the well-being of the most vulnerable members of the family. The gravity of the situation was now undeniable, and the excuses that had been offered seemed wholly inadequate in the face of the children's near disaster.
Come through, and they're wandering around a parking garage, and they can get hit by a fucking car, bro. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So, good thing nothing happened, but
Thank you so much.
With the facts established and the inconsistencies in the woman's story laid bare, the investigation moved into its final, formal stage. The pretense of a simple inquiry was over. It was now a criminal matter. The officer approached the woman, who was seated outside on a bench, her earlier defiance having melted away into a quiet resignation. He calmly but firmly informed her that he needed to ask her questions as part of a criminal investigation. To do so, he was required to read her rights. This procedural step marked a significant escalation, signaling that she was no longer just a person of interest but a suspect in a crime. The formal recitation of her right to remain silent and her right to an attorney underscored the seriousness of the charges she was facing. She listened silently, her expression a mixture of fear and defeat, as the legal process began to formally envelop her.
I gotta read you your rights, you understand? Alright? This does not mean you being arrested, it's not mean you going to jail. Alright? It means I have to ask you questions. Do you understand? I need a verbal yes or no.
Oh, yes.
Okay. You have the right to remain silent.
After acknowledging that she understood her rights, the questioning resumed, but this time it was a formal interrogation. The officer once again confronted her about her initial false statement. He reminded her that she had told him the children's father was with them before he came to pick her up, a narrative that had been proven untrue. Her lie had unraveled completely, and she had no choice but to admit she had, in fact, left the children alone. The officer pressed further, asking why she would leave a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old completely by themselves. Her explanations were weak and failed to justify the profound lack of judgment. The officer's tone was not aggressive but was filled with a sense of disbelief and disappointment. He was not just a law enforcement official but also a voice of societal expectation, questioning how any guardian could make such a reckless choice. The woman's actions were now officially categorized not as a mistake, but as neglect. The culmination of the investigation was swift and decisive. With her lies exposed and her negligence confirmed, the officer informed the woman that she was under arrest. He instructed her to stand, and as the man watched while holding their child, her hands were secured behind her back in handcuffs. The click of the metal was a definitive sound, marking the end of the investigation and the beginning of legal consequences. The woman was then escorted away from the apartment complex, her journey now leading into the justice system. The scene was a quiet but powerful display of accountability. Her choices throughout the day, from leaving the children to misleading the police, had led directly to this moment. The final resolution mentioned in the case file indicates she was ultimately sentenced to 2 years of probation for child neglect, a legal consequence that would serve as a long-term reminder of the day her children were found wandering alone.
Was that sentence fair, or do you think it fell short of justice? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe.
Understood?
I'm sorry. I really am, but she was just trying to help. I'm so sorry, okay? I got you. I will be down there with you, okay?
The suspect was arrested on charges of child neglect and later sentenced to 2 years of probation. Was that sentence fair, or do you think it fell short of justice? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe.